When I start out to make a fool of myself, there's very little can stop me. If I'd known where it would end, I'd have never let anything start. If I had been in my right mind, that is. But once I'd seen her, I was not in my right mind for quite some time. Good evening, says I, thinking myself a very gay.
Welcome to the Frisco, the Secret History podcast. I'm your host, Knox Bronson. I'm here with Rachel Walther again to discuss Orson Welles' 1947 movie, The Lady From Shanghai, for the second installment of our ongoing series, Frisco Noir. The great noir movies from the 30s, 40s, and 50s set in San Francisco, the cool gray city of love that seduced the world. I don't know if you've listened to our first installment where we discussed the original Maltese Falcon of 1931, made 10 years before the Humphrey Bogart version, but you can find it on the website if you wish. Before we move on, I want to mention that you can also watch both the original Maltese Falcon and The Lady from Shanghai on the Frisco The Secret History website as well. Rachel is a writer and a film historian, and I'll let her tell you a little bit about herself and her new book that is coming out next year. Rachel?
I write for the Film Noir Foundation regularly for their Noir City Journal and a few other publications, classic movies, more contemporary movies. Usually try to focus on crime films. And so my debut book, it's due out in the spring, so there's a little bit of time yet. And it's all about Dog Day Afternoon, how the movie got made, the real life story it was based on, and then how the two continued to influence each other in the 50 years since the film came out. So that's called Born to Lose, the Misfits who made Dog Day Afternoon. And yes, I think around March is when that's going to come out.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about the movie. As you know, we've talked about, we're going to do a series about the film noir movies that were made in San Francisco in the 30s and 40s, and this one was it 1947?
Yes, released in 47, shot in 46.
Okay. You want to just talk about Orson Welles, where he was at, and all that, everything? Well, I'm just going to let you go.
Well, this movie was sort of his last-ditch effort to sort of toe the line in Hollywood. He had an amazing debut success with Citizen Kane when he was still in his 20s. And then there was a very famous, I guess, a dramatic, fraught story of his follow-up film making The Magnificent Ambersons. And that was more of a period piece and a book adaptation. And in a lot of ways, it was much more technically proficient, narrative-wise, really mature story about a family going through modernization and sort of how they get undone by that. But he went over budget, his edit was too long, and so the studio just took that film away from him. They re-edited it, they shot a new ending, which Welles didn't like, and so the movie just sort of got mangled, and he was so disillusioned by that experience that he left Hollywood. He went down and tried to shoot some documentaries in South America, which ate up a lot of time and money and didn't really lead to much. And so he was sort of lured back as a fixer to fix a film journey into fear, like a espionage spy thriller. I want to say like 44, 45 at RKO. And so he's like, okay, he needed the money, get back into the swing of things a little bit. And after that, he had an opportunity to, direct, star, write again, B-picture called The Stranger, where he plays a Nazi in hiding disguised as like a professor in a small town. And that movie actually did really well. And so it was a very normal movie by his standards, but it gave him a second wind and it made people interested again in what was going on with him. And so he, in the meantime, was also working a bit in theater. So he had this a play in New York that was over budget. It was due to close before it even opened because they'd already run out of money. It was an adaptation of Around the World in 80 Days, which just kind of sounds insane. And so he was working with the producer Mike Todd, who was married to Liz Taylor eventually and all that. So he called up Harry Cohn, who ran Columbia Studios, and said, hey, I got a deal for you. Do you want me writing, directing, starring in a movie? Send me $50,000 right now, and I'm yours. Whatever you want to do. And Cohn's like, well, what are you going to do? What's the story going to be? And as Welles tells it, there's this, whether it's true or not, it's a different story. But he said that as he was in a phone booth, he just glanced at a paperback rack in like the train station or the corner, the street corner he was at. And he just saw a title. He just said, If I Die Before I Wake. It's a great story. You're going to love it. It's a thriller. It's got everything we want. So Cohn wired the money. He threw the money into the production. The show still closed within 2 weeks after it opened. I think it didn't do well. And now he was on the hook for this movie. He had to buy the book, figure out what it was about, what he wanted to keep, what he wanted to change. And it kind of ratcheted up a notch when Cohn suggested, well, why don't we put Rita in the movie? And Rita was he was separated from her at the time.
Orson Welles was separated. They were a couple. Were they married? Or?
Yeah, they had been married for, I want to say about 2 years at that point, but they'd stopped living together, I want to say maybe 6 months ago. And why Cohn thought it was a good idea, it's like, hey, you're already doing all this work on this film. Let's throw in your ex-wife to the mix to just lower the stress level, soon to be ex-wife. But, at the same time, it was definitely going to it was going to amp up the budget. It was going to turn like a C movie into a B, maybe A movie for Welles. And so he realized, okay, this is going to give me a lot more freedom. And him and Rita were still getting along decently at that point. They were estranged, but they did have a young daughter, Rebecca. And Rita really saw this as an opportunity to she just had a big hit with Gilda. So she was super hot, but she was really not happy with what her image was becoming as like this sex goddess who was this just sort of like mixed up, emotionally volatile temptress, which is funny that she thought a role like this would maybe change things a bit. But the way that both her and Welles envisioned her character, she saw it as an opportunity to really kind of stretch her acting chops and just hit a reset button. And she was also thinking that maybe it would thaw things out between her and Welles. She always was kind of in awe of him. She knew what a smart guy he was. She always felt a little self-conscious about the fact that she hadn't finished school because she went into performing so young. So she had never had an opportunity to work with him professionally. And so she wanted to do that and to have him see her in that way, thinking it would bring them back together. Didn't really work out that way, but at the same time, the story of the production, like there weren't as many explosions or insanity between the two of them as one might have, as you might expect. So it did okay, but Welles was just too caught up in his own madness. This film just turned into a fantasia, this noir dreamscape fantasia.
Did he actually base it on that book?
A bit. The characters' names, a lot of them are the same as the book. And I haven't read it, so I just know based on secondhand accounts and reading the synopsis. But that book, the plot all takes place in Long Island. And so Welles immediately was like, okay, how far from Hollywood will my budget take me? So let's go to Mexico. Let's get away from the prying studio heads. And I think that's also maybe a big reason as to why he chose San Francisco for the second half of the film rather than just going back to LA. So they decamped to Mexico to shoot the first half of the film. Errol Flynn let them use his yacht that he had down there to shoot all the scenes. And so I guess to back up a bit, the plot loosely, it's not only I don't want to give anything away, but also the plot's kind of nuts. I think if you try to actually stitch it together and follow it, there's a lot of holes. It doesn't make any sense. But again, it's almost like a dream of what a film noir might be, where, in dreams, how you're in one chamber of logic and then things slowly shift and suddenly you're in a completely different environment and you can't quite remember how you got there. So the first 45 minutes, Wells's character is sort of like this young hapless sailor who gets involved, I think like skippering or first mating for this rich woman and her husband. And he has a thing for the woman who's played by Rita Hayworth, and the husband's this, he doesn't love her, he doesn't respect her, and so her and Welles start to have a illicit affair. And then the husband sort of gets wind, and he tries to snare up the young man in all these machinations involving his partner faking his death, all these sorts of things.
Right.
And it just gets nuts.
Yeah.
But, so they're in Mexico. Errol Flynn's captaining the ship, or excuse me, yacht. I always use the wrong terms with
yacht,
boats.
fine.
Yeah.
Ship.
And first day on set, the director Wells yells action, or however you do that when you're both the actor and the director, and then the one of the cameramen just drops dead right there on the first day. And so Errol Flynn in his infinite wisdom is like, we'll just shove him in a duffel bag and let's just dump him out at sea. We got to get going. Where's the drinks? And so they eventually didn't do that. They did, take his remains and send it off to the U.S. to be properly respected. I think that guy's name was Ray Corey. And so it was that kind of like madcap nuttiness. And Wells was constantly rewriting the dialogue every day, so people were sort of off kilter, forgetting their lines. But Wells kind of liked that because it forced people to improvise when they couldn't think about what they were supposed to say.
Sing it for us again, Lama.
Why do you stand for that, Bessie? I'm quitting. Why don't you?
You heard him, Mr. Poet. I need the money.
Talk of money and murder. I must be insane. Or else all these people are lunatics.
That's why I can't leave. That poor little child he married. Somebody's got to take care of her.
Don't hold me, but if you hold me, don't take your arms away. Comes a change in weather, comes a change of heart, and who knows when the rain will start. So I beg you, please don't love me, but if you love me, then don't take your lips or your arms or your love away.
How far out at sea were they? Were they just out like a
Just coastal.
little bit?
Because there's always...
They had the whole crew there on the. That must have been a pretty big yacht. I mean,
Yeah, and they had a decent budget for this too. I mean, and then in part of it is there's scenes where, since it's sort of a, Hayworth and her her husband played by Everett Sloane, they're sort of these, bourgeois types, and so they always kind of travel with this unwieldy entourage of strange characters. Right. So it had that feel to it.
Yeah.
And Flynn's drinking, and then Rita Hayworth's getting sick, so she had to go home at one point, just because I don't know if it was traveler sickness or something more severe. So it was definitely fraught, though, and everyone was a little bit fried out and cranky by the time they wrapped up that half. And
where in Mexico were they? Like part of Vallarta or something like that?
That is
Acapulco?
I don't know the answer to that. I gotta say, I'm not quite sure. I want to say fairly close to the border. They didn't go too far afield. I want to say somewhere near Baja, but I can't say for sure.
I'll look it up and it'll be in the show notes.
Oh, but no, let me know too. That's one thing I wasn't quite sure about.
Yeah.
So once they get back to San Francisco, the second half of the film, it's this weird mix of there's a whole.
Can you talk about why they decide to go to San Francisco without a spoiler?
Well, no, honestly, I couldn't. I was trying to sort of look for the motivation behind that, and I couldn't find anything specific in the sense, it was not in the original story.
Yeah.
But I really think Wells wanted to keep away as much as he could, and I mean, San Francisco's just. The way that he treats that city visually in the movie, he knows what he's doing. He knows how dynamic and wild the city is just by looking at it. So it really helps keep that off-kilter feel because, you Chinatown figures prominently in it, and then there's the fun house out at Playland at the beach, in Ocean Beach. But I was thinking about that when I was watching that final scene with so many films from San Francisco in that era, they'll show the main parts of the city, North Beach, Telegraph Hill, Chinatown, downtown, and then sometimes the ocean, but you never see the outer avenues. You never see, Richmond or the Sunset. And
they were just getting populated after the war at that time as people from the Midwest who had been passing through town on their way to or from war. Mm-hmm. And they came back and they started moving up. So there wasn't a lot out there.
Makes sense, yeah. And so it comes across in films, though, as this just weird jump cut almost between, you're never really quite sure how the beach exists in relation to the rest of the city.
Yeah, well, they built a little train that actually went out there at one point, and it just went all the way out to Ocean Beach to Playland, and
Yeah, but it fits in so nicely with this hallucinatory dreamscape world where Wells, in one scene, he escapes the courtroom that he's being tried in, and he just runs across the street and suddenly he's in Chinatown. And so it's that thing where, and he actually is though, like oh gosh, what's the name? It's the Portsmouth Square. So he runs across Portsmouth Square into Chinatown off of Kearny.
Well, the main police station was right there back then as well. Yeah. So I don't know, there might have been a courtroom there too.
I think there was. Yeah. And then is that where that weird hotel is now?
Yeah, the one on Kearny. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I know it's one of those sort of like old, now retro futuristic looking structures, which now there's a like a fondness for that in the Embarcadero. And so to get back to that, I mean, Wells was comfortable with Chinatown because he had taken some trips to Shanghai with his dad. He had this very sort of eclectic, colorful childhood that exposed him to a lot of the world and a lot of the arts. So he was comfortable with something like that. And but for that to be depicted so thoroughly in a movie at that time without as much, like exaggeration or exoticization as most Hollywood did at the time, that was pretty unusual too. I mean, and a lot's been made about how Rita Hayworth looks in the film, and the fact that she's this lady of like a dubious past with a bit of a murky background, in some ways maybe a little similar to Gilda in that sense, but again, both her and Wells were all for it. She cut her hair, she dyed it platinum blonde, which really pissed off Harry Cohn, the studio head, because he considered her private property, and the fact that Wells did this without asking him, without checking on him, is just without checking with him. But Hayworth wanted it as kind of an FU to Cohn. She was under this restrictive contract. She was tired of him dictating her professional life and her personal life. So she thought that it would also really help in that effort to be perceived as a different type of actress, to have a completely made over look. So they were really on the same page with that. And I think it works really well. I mean, there's the scenes in Chinatown, I guess that's why I'm thinking about it, is really when the true colors of her character really come out. And it's just dynamic and stunning. And there's a lot of just really poignant close-ups of her face in a Chinese opera theater, especially, that are just stunning.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. And then we slam out to the Ocean Beach and the Funhouse.
Yeah.
And they just shot the exteriors, actually, out there. Everything else was done back in LA in studios.
The Funhouse mirrors were done in LA?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, Wells really he had a very personal hand in that sequence. Because I think he had been trying to do a Hall of Mirrors type sequence in a lot of different aborted efforts before. So I think it was just a personal idea that he finally could see how it would fit. But he was painting the sets himself. I think, it was like $60,000 to get that all together. And I think I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure it's 3,000 square feet of glass for the mirror sequence.
Wow.
And, when you're watching it, when you finally get to that point of the film, there's no point of view or, one person's perspective. It's really just this amazing montage at this point of these characters' motivations and ambitions and passions and sadnesses kind of smashing into each other. But it's definitely a fun house I want to hang out in. There's a lot of cool, modernist sequences. There's a really exciting looking slide, and He went all out. He should have. That would have been a nice side gig for him, just designing these wild amusement attractions. But so he had just this wild, massive film that he shot, and he sort of just dumped it on the editors. I mean, not to say he abandoned the project outright, but Lady from Shanghai is another situation where Wells gets antsy at that point in a project, and so for a number of practical reasons, he already had, spent the money he'd made from this movie before he started making it, so he had to move on to the next thing. Him and Rita had decided to separate officially and work towards a divorce, and so he was already off to the next project.
Right.
And so Viola Lawrence, the editor, came in and just had to make sense of this stuff and stitch it together and sharpen up a narrative cohesion out of this very frayed, abstract story. And so I think, I read an article of hers, not her, excuse me. I read an article about her pretty recently, actually, in the Noir City magazine.
The editor?
The editor of Viola Lawrence, because she'd been in films, I want to say, since the silent era, and she'd worked with von Sternberg a few times, so she knew how to deal with, crazy geniuses who didn't always follow the rules.
Right.
And she was able to do it with like a modicum of drama coming out of her. And so this Mary Mallory wrote this really interesting essay, sort of saying that, Viola Lawrence, she's often vilified as the woman who, she cut down Lady from Shanghai, and it wasn't what it could have been if Wells had been able to do it. But this article was sort of arguing maybe she's the only reason why we get to see it as a finished story at all.
Wells did not have a prior relationship with San Francisco. Did he just sort of put it in the script and they came up here and he did a quick scouting of everything and kind of just made a bunch of shots and then the put it.
Yeah, I think it was definitely sort of just here, let's choose this. I don't know. I honestly that's not something I know off the top of my head as far as who did like location management. If he outsourced that heavily, or if he had more of a personal role in selecting that. But also, there's a lot of neat shots in Sausalito that sort of get undermentioned because. Right when they first pull in back up to the U.S.
Yes.
You're coming into Sausalito looking at the city skyline. Yes. And that sort of, there's a dramatic scene where he's running away from a mob of people, Wells's, and so he's zigzagging across those boardwalks down to a pier. And that kind of mirrors the crazy house sequence at the end. So Sausalito has a really nice little, more than a cameo, but a little squink of a role in there.
So in the pantheon of noir movies set in San Francisco, where would you put
this
Lady from Shanghai?
I think this is definitely a film that's right up there. It's always going to be associated with the city. And I forgot to mention the Steinhardt Aquarium too. There's a really memorable sequence in there, and especially for folks who grew up in the city, like my husband. He remembers going to that because I think it's just changed locations a couple of times. So he remembers specifically going to that building with the small tanks. But Wells really utilizes the shimmering light that you get in that aquarium, and the fact that sort of you're being surveilled while you're trying to get privacy, but the fish are staring at you, passersby are staring at you. It's a much more claustrophobic feeling than, say, a zoo or a park, because they're sort of submerged and things are closing in on them. And so I think because not only the fact that they shoot in the city, but also the fact that he chose such distinctly separate parts of the city, and that they're so visually dynamic in and of themselves, that stays with you more so than the plot, for sure. And I gotta say, with these restorations that have happened to the film in recent years, it's just staggering. Looking at the shots of when he's running up the streets in Chinatown, it's just shooting on location in the city was still something that was just getting underway. And so being able to see the streets during that era, I think in her commentary, Imogen Sarah Smith points out the Chinese telephone exchange. There's a shot of that. There's a shot of...
Which commentary is that?
Imogen Sarah Smith. She did
that article you're talking about?
Separate. Actually, there's been so much journalism about
send me the link and I'll put it in the show notes, please.
Yeah. I think it's the new KL edition Blu-ray
Oh,
has that, and I recommend it. Imogen is also the editor-in-chief of Noir City magazine, and she's also a regular commentator for Criterion Channel and their discs, and so she, it was really nice to hear her take on the film, and I think I agree with her on one point. A lot of the conventional wisdom is that the plot of this film and a lot of the camera work was a commentary on Welles's relationship with Rita Hayworth. And the hostility, like this, this ice woman, this cold woman who, kind of just out for herself, and she's duplicitous, doing whatever she needs to, and here's this guy just getting caught up in a web and, doesn't know where to turn, that sort of thing. People just read that as him, going through divorce and being cranky about it. But her attitude is it's much more about Welles's relationship to Hollywood and the seductive and duplicitous nature of that, which personally makes a lot more sense to me. So it's really nice to get her perspective on aspects of the themes of the film as well as its, production history.
How did the movie do?
Not good.
No.
No. It was just too strange. It was so unlike, an A picture at the time. Everything. I mean, I need to thanks not only to Imogen but also Eddie Muller, because I feel like I'm parroting maybe some of the things that they've said previously. So I don't want to take personal credit for them, but I think Eddie said something like Welles could not make an uninteresting shot if he tried. Everything in that film is just so inherently different and compelling that it reads as strange. Now we seek that out and we think it's delightful, but at the time audiences weren't going to it, and admittedly people were kind of, I think, put off by Rita's new look. The marketing were pushing, they came up with that title, The Lady from Shanghai. I think Welles wanted to do something more vaguer. I think Black Irish was the title he had for a while because his character is Irish. I think Lady from Shanghai is a great title, but they were really trying to tie that into like Shanghai Gesture, Shanghai Express, making it this exotic thing all around Rita's role, which makes sense. And people just weren't ready for what it ended up being, put it that way.
I've never seen an aquarium. Would you show me about?
I couldn't think where else we could meet. Only tourists come here and school children.
And lovers?
Oh, Michael.
Fair Rosalie.
You love me very much.
I do.
Do you still want to take me away with you?
Why do you ask me that?
Tell me where we'll go, Michael. Will you carry me off with you into the sunrise?
Stop tormenting me. I'll take proper care of you. You won't starve.
I don't care where it is, Michael. Just take me there. Take me quick. Take me.
I don't want you to worry about us, Rosalie.
Oh, Michael,
I'm making
worried
arrangements.
about you. The things you said yesterday about money. You didn't sound like you. You're not going to try anything foolish, are you?
I'm afraid so. Something very foolish indeed.
I, Michael O'Hara, in order to live in peace with my God, do freely make the following confession.
Read the last part. That explains the whole of it.
We arrived at the boat landing at approximately 10:20. Mr. Grisby said he heard a sound, something suspicious. He said he was frightened of a holdup and asked me to get the gun out of the side pocket of the car just in case. I reached in and got the gun, but I had hardly taken hold of it when the gun went off by accident in my hand. Then I saw that Mr. Grisby was all covered with blood. It took me a minute to realize that Mr. Grisby was dead, to realize that I, Michael O'Hara, had killed him. But I don't understand, Michael. What were you doing with George in Sausalito?
Says Mr. Grisby wants to spend the night on the yacht and asked me to drive him there. That's when I killed him. You see, with the rough tide there is in the bay, they wouldn't recover the body if there was one. You don't understand, darling. He isn't dead yet. Grisby's alive. He won't be murdered till tonight. Is that foolish enough for you?
My husband wrote that thing and got you to sign it for him.
I am curious, and I mean, a lot of people say Citizen Kane is the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah.
How did Orson Welles fall so far after that?
Yeah.
I just don't quite understand.
I think he would be the first one to admit, maybe eventually, that he had a lot to do with that himself. Yeah. What I think is really interesting, especially when you watch interviews with him in the 1960s and 1970s, he's really humble, or maybe that's the wrong word. He has a lot of self-deprecation in retrospect about how he behaved during those years and what he could have done differently. I think he was someone who had a lot of regrets. Interestingly, I don't think it was substance abuse stuff ever.
Yeah, alcohol.
His dad died of alcoholism when he was young, and it deeply affected him. So he always stayed away from that, but it was his monomaniacal, obsessive nature mixed in with, if you can imagine, being a young guy in your mid-20s, being told you're the greatest thing in the world. Women are throwing themselves at you. Money's being thrown at you. You can do whatever you want. Yeah. But what you uniquely want to do is so strange. Just no one gets it. Everyone fights you. Right. Everyone's wanting to water down your vision. And I think he would, again, he always had too many projects going at once. He would never see something through. He didn't like to compromise. And so he kept getting edged out of things before the end, and the final product ended up not being what he wanted it to be.
That is the curse of Hollywood, though, isn't it?
Oh, my gosh, yeah. I mean, no, he didn't make another. After Lady from Shanghai, he went to Europe for a while. You know, him and Rita were through. He did theater in Europe. He worked on film production of Othello that took forever to finish, Mr. Arcadon, which took forever to finish. And it was 10 years later, he came back for Touch of Evil, which is freaking phenomenal. But it was the same thing all over again. It was that fraught thing. They took the edit away from him. It wasn't quite what he wanted. And thank goodness they've been able to finally put that back the way he wanted it to be. And I think we can really appreciate where he was going with it and how he wanted it to be. But he didn't get to make another film completely on his own terms until 1962 with The Trial, which he made in France and Yugoslavia. And personally, for me, I think that's my personal favorite. And there's a lot of similarities between...
Trial?
Yeah, it stars Anthony Perkins and a bunch of great European actors. Jean Moreau's in it. Elsa, I can't remember her last name, and then Romy Schneider's in it. And it's one of the only times Welles is in the film without any adornment. You know, he always wanted to have like a fake nose or a beard or a costume of some kind. And even in Lady from Shanghai, he has an Irish accent for an inexplicable reason that's hard to maintain. But in The Trial, he's just himself. And I see that as a way, because he's so personally, creatively satisfied with what he's working on his own terms, that he can just let everything else go. But that has a lot of similarities to Lady from Shanghai in its hallucinatory quality, where you're just shifting from one environment that's more visually dynamic than the next. And how, I think he says at the beginning of The Trial that the story is like the logic of a dream. And I think you could apply that just as much to the Lady from Shanghai.
Absolutely.
And I think to go back to your question earlier, how does it stand in San Francisco as a San Francisco noir? I think that's why it always is in the top 1, 2, 3. Is because it shows us the city back to us in a way that we lose sight of sometimes. Especially when you live in the Bay Area, it becomes so commonplace, or you're stuck in traffic, and to see it in the sharp black and white at dawn or dusk, or in the dead of night with all the neon blazing.
Once we got to San Francisco, I started really enjoying the movie. Before that, I'm going, what's going on here? Who's this guy? I mean, you know, it was just the way
it's maddening.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, like there's the famous story with when they were writing the script for The Big Sleep, they...
Which one?
The 40s one with Bogart.
Yeah.
They called up Howard Hawks saying, hey, wait. Hawks called Chandler saying, hey, wait, So who killed the chauffeur? We can't quite figure it out from the book. And Chandler's answer was, I don't know. Like, there's just...
That's right.
But I love that. Like, that doesn't... And that's like another reason why Lady from Shanghai, it's so maddening that you keep thinking, oh, I just need to pay more attention or look at it a different way and it will make more sense. And it never does.
Well,
but we change, as the years go by and we rewatch it, we notice different things about it.
Well, you know what Raymond Chandler said? When you've written yourself into a hole, into the corner, just send a man into the room with a gun.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
That always livens things up again. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the other one would be Vertigo, maybe. I mean, some people might argue that's not film noir, but to me, that... You cannot... It's so linked with San Francisco. But that's such a different... Even that's such a different city than the Lady from Shanghai, San Francisco. It's full color, bright sunshine. It's sinister in a totally opposite way.
Yeah. I assume that Rita Hayworth's career rebounded from Lady from Shanghai.
I think, it was kind of, as far as success-wise, a bit of a blip in the sense that she continued to do well for a while. But she, personally, though... I mean, I think with her and Wells, you can't think of a couple that disliked Hollywood more than the two of them. They were both thinking that this film was going to be their ticket to a different way of living.
Lady from Shanghai?
Yeah, and since it wasn't, she went right back to the redhead bombshell. She did Love's a Carmen, which really played into what she'd established with Gilda, but then she got married and took a break from Hollywood for a bit.
Did she ever talk about Lady from Shanghai?
Not a ton. I mean, she did. She talked about it in the sense of what she was hoping it would be, and how much she respected Wells, and how she still saw it as a good film. And they were both very happy with what they did with it. Just no one else cared for 20 years. It was one of those stories. But no, I mean, Rita Hayworth's story honestly is very sad. And she got married and took a break from Hollywood. She married Prince Ali Khan.
Right.
And I think, they sort of lived all over for a bit, but the marriage didn't last too long. They had a child. And then it was a lot of bitter custody fights. And so she, kind of had to go back to Hollywood, doing films with Glenn Ford. But it was never quite the way that it was. And she was drinking a bit too much. And she would have these really sudden, volatile emotional outbursts. She was, by all accounts, a really sweet lady, very kind, but she really just wanted... I think a more modest life than sort of what she was thrust into. I mean, she'd been performing since she was literally like 11 or 12 because of her family. It was they were pushing her into the limelight, and there was just so much abuse from all the men in her life early on that her relationships were always fraught because of that. So she really kind of, I think, wanted to have a life where she could relax, raise her kids, and have someone kind of protect her from all the lousy stuff in life. And it just... it never worked out like that. And so the film roles, started to dwindle to the extent that by the end of the 50s, she was doing supporting parts. She was having like these weird, mysterious ailments. People attributed it at the time to, that she had a drinking problem. And they're thinking, that's why she's not remembering what she said the night before. That's why she's having trouble remembering her lines. And it would take another 15 years to realize that she actually had early onset Alzheimer's that set in very young. And so she self-medicated a bit with the alcohol, but by the time she was diagnosed successfully, it was just a really hard road from then on.
Hollywood.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Just crazy, the lives.
And you think too, like, because we're talking about all this, these wild lives and all this amazing marriage, and at the time Wells was, I think, 31, and she was 28.
Yeah.
And just thinking about that, how, oh my gosh, having the weight of the world on your shoulders and that level of scrutiny on what you're doing. And in the film, say, the Everett Sloane character, he's this, old rich husband, he's over the hill, he's got all these health ailments. He was 37. I mean, admittedly, he looks a bit older, and I think he's playing an older character, but you're just like, want to slap your head like, oh my gosh, okay, it's I don't know if that's the thing, the celluloid, they remain the same age for eternity, and we age around it.
I can't think of anything else.
Oh?
Can you?
Gosh, No.
I mean, I feel like I've gotten an education about the movie, having watched it and been totally baffled by it, and then enchanted. It. I love that ending sequences, the funhouse part.
Yes.
But also what the hopscotch that happens through the city to get there, and but thank you for. I mean, you certainly put a lot more into perspective for me.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope I didn't jump around too much.
No,
that
no,
it was
no,
interesting
not a
for
bit.
folks as far as and again, thanks to the folks that I mentioned from the Film Noir Foundation, I have to credit their research on this story.
Well,
informed.
I'll get it from you. We'll put it in the show notes. Yeah. So visit the Frisco thesecrethistory.com website, and we'll have the transcript. Well, we'll have the transcript, and we'll have some show notes and links and stuff to other stuff.
And thank you guys for listening, and thank you, Knox,
Rachel,
for inviting me back.
Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, and
I came to in the crazy house, and for a while there.
The Secret History of Frisco is ostensibly a listener-supported podcast. Main episodes will always be free. Our website is www.thesecrethistoryoffrisco.com. Please join us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/Frisco. Visit the website for the transcript of this episode and show notes. Please take advantage of our free membership option on Patreon. Paid tier members, starting at as little as $1 a month, will receive bonus episodes and other perks of membership. If you enjoy the podcast, please tell your friends about it, especially those who enjoy San Francisco or true crime history. Word of mouth is the absolute best means of promotion for any creative endeavor in this world of algorithms and the ceaseless barrage of ads, notifications, and appeals on every digital platform. If you are aware of some particular aspect of San Francisco history in the 30s and 40s you would like me to research, or have a story to tell, please let me know. Once again, I'm your host, Knox Bronson. Thank you for listening. Until next time, please get a little crazy and call it Frisco.
And what about me?
Oh, we could have gone off together.
Into the sunrise. You and me, or you and Grisby.
I love you.
One who follows his nature keeps his original nature in the end. But haven't you heard ever of something better to follow?
No.